Hi everybody, streaming in the DJ booth. You know there's a seismic shift happening in the industry when the panel consists of 7 people. So wish me luck with navigating enough time for everybody to contribute. We're going to do a bit of show and tell, I guess, because everybody's got something to say. They've got a product launch or something happening. So we'll dive straight in. If I could start to my immediate right with who you are, who you work for, and anything that you've got happening relative to streaming in the DJ booth.
Oh, well, hello. My name's Declan McGlynn. I'm the digital tech editor of DJ Mag. I guess in terms of streaming, it's something we've been covering. Everyone saw it coming, and it's been, I guess last year, Beatport launched, kind of teased what they're going to show today, but we've been covering it since then. It's just kind of fascinating the implications of what's about to come around the corner. I'll give pros and cons, of which there are many, so let's get into it.
My name is Clark Warner. I've worked for Dubset, VP Artist and Label Relations. Can we go into this now? Basically, Dubset is somewhere that, as a service, it falls a little bit after the streaming side. We're really there to put mixes into streaming services from DJs. So there's 50,000 rights holders in the platform, licensed about 50 million tracks, so there's a lot to work with for DJs to simply get their mixes up on places like Apple, Tidal, and Spotify.
Hello, my name's Rick Parkinson. I'm the product planning manager for Pioneer DJ in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It's my job and my team's job to oversee the introduction of new products, hardware and software products. And sure, we made some steps in a streaming direction last week and announced integration with Beatport Link and SoundCloud Go Plus.
Hi there, my name's Jack Bridges, Label Relations from SoundCloud. We recently launched a number of integrations that were announced at the end of last year and initially went live with Serato and have more recently gone live with Dex3, Virtual DJ and Pioneer. And we're imminently about to launch with Denon and also Native Instruments Tractor. And what that does is it allows a SoundCloud subscriber to access over 200 million tracks from 20 million creators through their favorite software integration, or as what we're seeing in a lot of cases for new users to actually experience and explore DJing for the first time. So it's very exciting.
Hello, my name is Heiko Hoffman, and I'm the Director of Artist and Label Relations at Beatport. And we just launched last week, the first streaming service just for DJs. So this is not a kind of Spotify for dance music, but it is a streaming service that just goes right into the DJ software. And it's actually 2 different kinds of products. One, Link, that is out now in its first iteration through Pioneer WeDJ. And this allows beginner DJs to DJ at home or other DJs to practice and rehearse tracks that they then want to buy. And the other one is going to be called Link Pro, and that's going to come up in the upcoming months, and it's going to be integrated, for example, into Pioneer Recordbox or into Denon. And for that we have a patent called the Locker. And that means just like when you're, for example, using Netflix and you want to watch a movie on a plane, you can put it in an offline locker. So that's what we are going to offer, so that you can actually DJ without relying on an internet connection. And just one point that I already wanted to stress, as you've seen the presentation before, Beatport is actually growing revenue through downloads. So we're selling more downloads every year. So we're not doing this service to replace that, but it's an additional service and it's an additional revenue stream for labels and artists.
Hi everyone, my name is Liz Muirhead and I work for BMAT. We're monitoring a catalogue of 72 million tracks in over 7,000 radios, TVs, venues and digital service providers worldwide. And then we're reporting all of the music we identify to over 100 performing rights organisations, as well as radio and TV broadcasters, labels, the majors and digital distributors. And at BMAT, my role is Vice President of Venues. So I manage all the projects relating to clubs, music festivals, but that could also extend to shops, for example, or restaurants.
Hi, I'm Morgan Donoghue from Denon DJ. I'm the Executive Vice President of Business Development. Yesterday we announced 4 streaming service integrations, Beatport, BeatSource, SoundCloud and Tidal. They'll be coming this summer. Previous to that, I was involved at Serato with bringing Pulse Locker in, and I did the first pan-European streaming deals in 2008.
Thank you, everyone. Liz, I'd like to come to you first, if I may, because if you go back 10 years and you think about DJs reporting set lists to performing right organisations, so the music that they played gets paid, it was almost impossible to get a set list and nigh on impossible to get one that had any credible data in it. And now all of a sudden we have a plethora of systems in booths around the world with meticulous metadata, one would hope. What are the opportunities that this presents for a company like yourself and for artists, labels and publishers?
I'm super happy about it. As you say, 10 years ago, I don't think that there was any accurate data coming from electronic music events, or very, very little. Over my experience of working at BMAT over the last 5 years, and also being involved with the Association for Electronic Music, the first kind of challenges we saw were with, or everyone figuring out what's available, what can we do, and how can we actually identify the music in clubs and festivals. So it was focused on the MRT companies like BMAT and making sure that record labels are actually delivering their content to us so we could actually monitor it. Then it was the focus on the performing rights organisations. And about 3 years ago, BMAT partnered with Pioneer DJ so that we could report all of the Kuvo data that comes from the Kuvo mobile phone application to PROs. PROs have the reputation that we're all very aware of moving very slowly and not being connected with electronic music events. And within about 3 years, we had 16 performing rights organisations signed up and receiving Kuvo data. That is exceptional. So the whole idea of PROs not being interested suddenly was kind of put on its head slightly, and you had them all waiting and open to new solutions. Then it was the response to that data, which was, we need more of it, and we need it to be touched up a little bit. Well, BMAT is providing data services to digital service providers like Beatport, SoundCloud via the performing rights organisations, so that we can cover. So what it does is give us more data, and that's where we're lacking. So all of these streaming services that are coming around now is going to be providing us more data that we want to deliver to the PROs, and the PROs are waiting for, so they can actually start paying out on it.
So, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity from a data perspective. But what was interesting to me, particularly after, I think, the Beatport announcement, was how much initial, I wouldn't say necessarily negativity, but surprising responses there were across social media chatter and elsewhere. And some of those responses were, this commoditizes music, this is going to kill downloads. What's the Beatport response to those kind of feelings and utterances that this is the beginning of the end for downloads and this isn't supportive of labels?
I really appreciate this feedback, and I realize also the reason why people are worried or asking questions is because this is something completely new to them. And they don't know what is this about, so we need to communicate this and explain to this, what is this actually about? And of course, there's a generation of musicians and DJs who think, when they think that in the future DJs are not going to own their music any longer, they find that worrying, or they just find this wrong. But then there is a new generation who prefers not to own anything and rather share or rent something or stream something. To make sure that we're doing this within the interest of the artists and labels, we spend more than a year signing record deals with labels and suppliers. It's actually Jack, who's sitting next to me. He worked at Beatport before he joined SoundCloud, and he started all these conversations with labels. So I think we are the only service out there that really explicitly made contracts with the suppliers of this catalog to go into the DJ streaming to make sure of this. But also something that I wanted to share, I was just reminded that 18 years ago, in 2001, I was at MEDEM when Richie Horton and John Acquaviva announced the first digital DJ product, Final Scratch. And the reactions after that announcement, they fell into two camps. One was, the ones were saying this is never going to happen. And you have to remember that was at a time when you wanted to DJ with digital files. You first needed to have a vinyl record and then digitize it. And when Beatport first started, we sent out CDRs to people because the files were too high to send out. And then the other camp was saying the end is near and vinyl is going to die. And neither of those two things happen. It's not just black and white. So vinyl is still around and selling more than ever, although for different purposes and different people. And yes, digital DJing has taken over vinyl. So I think this might still be in the future, but I think there will be a future where we will look back at DJs using USB stick like we are looking back at DJs using CDRs now.
And I guess, Jack, you have a different or unique perspective coming from Beatport and into SoundCloud, where SoundCloud has nothing to do with ownership. It's been, I guess, a very different experience for you integrating SoundCloud into the hardware of Denon.
It has to an extent, but I think what's been kind of really interesting learning about SoundCloud's audience and how it kind of differs really to Beatport or like a traditional kind of downloading DJ is actually how young the user base is on SoundCloud, you know, and that's really the difference where, you know, they're less interested in, you know, the ownership and the actual downloading. The mobile usage is extremely high. And they're on the move, they're really diverse as well. And that's what we're really tapping into. And we're not only tapping into, you know, SoundCloud's audience, but collectively the monthly active users from, you know, Pioneer, from Tractor, from Denon. And, you know, those numbers start to actually, you know, scale really high. And that should be what's kind of potentially exciting for the labels that we're working with and artists, is that, you know, there's going to be small overlap with the likes of Beatport, but actually really this is marketing to a completely different generation who have already moved on. And this is really about kind of safeguarding that and future-proofing it. There's a new economy that's growing out of that, and things are changing pretty rapidly, but there's still time to adopt it.
And Morgan, if I move to you from a Denon perspective, it's embracing streaming in the DJ booth. There's a good friend of mine uses a wonderful phrase, which is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I guess that I will represent his view here, which is, what was the rationale for Denon introducing streaming functionality into its hardware?
Well, I think if you look at what Denon's doing across the board, we are trying to get rid of the laptop. We are pushing technology very, very hard, and it's all about the computer being in the hardware. And so we are working very, very hard with the 5000 series, the Prime 4, which will ship next week. There's a range of other products that come after that. And then streaming is a massive part of that, and there's less things to go wrong. It just seems like we've got to keep pushing the future, and streaming is definitely that. And we've worked with a lot of great partners that are up here, and we're super, super excited about it. So I think it is the right thing to do. To me, it seems very similar to when we were trying to get label deals in 2008 just to do streaming in its infancy. And people were like, it'll never work, no one's going to rent music, what a stupid idea, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, honestly, people will really do it. You know, this will really happen. And it was me and the guys from Spotify wandering around trying to persuade the major labels that this was a good idea. And, you know, there were some big advances at the time that made it happen. But this seems like the same thing. I get confused about why people would get the difference between a stream and a digital download. It's two digital files. I don't understand, and maybe someone can explain to me the difference between that, but it's just a download is a download, right? It's a stream. There's very little difference. I could understand the difference when it was a vinyl record, to working at Serato. It was like, oh, you're killing vinyl, blah, blah, blah. That argument I could understand, but two digital files, that seems a strange argument. So for us, we think it's the future. We're pushing it as hard as we can, and all our technology is now embedded systems. We're not about laptops.
I'll put some counter arguments out.
Yeah, come on, let's go.
Those that aren't on the table. Rick, from a Pioneer perspective, can you just give a little bit more detail on what you've launched and where streaming is embedded?
Yeah, so as I announced initially, we announced our first integrations with Beatport Link and SoundCloud Go Plus last week, and that was really our first proof of concept really into adopting our technology into streaming. But I think the challenge for us from a technical point of view is our research indicates that typically the way DJs access music is typically 10 years behind how consumers access music. And that isn't because DJs are Luddites to technology. Sorry for offending anybody. But it's because the infrastructure doesn't exist to support it. So if we go back to around 1995 when we released our first CDJ 500, in 1985 the whole CD movement was booming. But by 1995, everybody had a CD burner in their laptop. Let's go to 2011, our first professional USB-based CDJ. 2001, the whole iTunes movement was booming. Everybody had USB keys in their laptops. So let's go to 2018, 17, where we are now, 10 years previous. Spotify was booming, but we have this huge question mark here, which is where is the infrastructure to support it? So as a community and as industry leaders, if we all have this vision, we all need to head in that direction in SDK, API, licensing, licensing for mixes, press, etc. So, yeah, sure, as Heiko said, this isn't for everybody. This is the start, and people still have a love affair with tangible music, and that will always exist. We still have amazing sales with turntables, and people want to own physical music. But sure, if this is the future, we need to support tomorrow's community, which I believe probably won't have any monetary value to music, and this is really the start of it. So it's a massive challenge for us technically because we are dependent on us all working together to achieve the same vision.
So Declan, I'm going to put you on the spot and
Please do.
make you represent the entire global DJ community. And there is an argument that if you make all of the world's music available to everyone all the time, that the art and craft of the set selection is dead. What would you say to that? Do you think that making all the music available everywhere is a good thing for DJs or a bad thing?
This argument's been had way before streaming was introduced, but I think if selection was all DJing was, then yes, but of course that's not it, is it? I mean, there's taste, there's reading the room, there's reacting to the crowd, there's, digging, going to certain record stores. It depends on the kind of DJ you are, of course. Some people are happy to shop online, others want to find something no one else has. And having pride in your collection, switching things up, shocking people, surprising people, none of that comes from your set list. It comes from you as a DJ. So your streaming or whatever the music source is, isn't as so relevant. So I don't think it's going to affect the quality of DJ. Maybe at the lower level, maybe you won't get that bar gig that you were going to get because some kid will come in and do it for 50 quid less. But the art itself I think is safe in this context.
And Clark, from a dubset perspective, does this present your organisation with greater opportunities, or does it give you a greater value in the industry? And if it does, what are they?
Yeah, well, I think we're all here in the industry of supporting, promoting, presenting artists, labels, the industry, events. And on the flip side of that, what we saw in Kevin's report, wholeheartedly is fan access, fan reach, and fan excitement. Those are increasing numbers, increasing, the lift on that side is where the audience is. As DJs, you have to meet them halfway. So to me, I feel like music discovery, which is one of the greatest tools of streaming in general, is just to let people know what they're listening to. That's the biggest hurdle for fans to date with DJs, and it's the same problem as the late 90s when you didn't know what someone was DJing. You had to really work hard to find out what that record was. Same listening to the radio. It's sometimes really hard to figure out what's in a set. So I think for us trying to help, on the side of helping the fan understand what they're listening to, because they're going to events, they're adding music to their life more and more. Doesn't really matter what age you are, but for electronic music, that is a consistent rising genre that we know is happening. So, I see with the way Apple's dedicated a section for DJ mixes, it helps a runway for DJ mixes to have a bit more of a presence. For Dubset, it's a place where we can actually help DJs tell people who they're playing, their what's in this set. There's transparency there. We all need transparency. That gives more attention to the original artists in the sets, in the mixes, and then that ties what's happening in our lifestyle a bit more into our day-to-day, where the fans are streaming. That's what they're listening to when they commute, before they go out, and then the moment we all want is a great DJ to help us escape all the stuff that's going on in life in general, just for a brief moment in time. So they want to have that access to mixes to keep that going. So I feel for Dubset, we have the ability just to help DJs simply know that rights holders are getting paid the royalties they should be for their music when it's streaming, period, and fans get to know what's in the music.
I think, in terms of leveling the playing field, what we're talking about, opening up catalogs to any user is really feeds into what we're trying to do, which is like democratize, access to DJ. And that feeds in really nicely to, the big hot topics of conferences like this, which is about diversity. And enabling people from all different kind of backgrounds, or whether it's male, female, opportunities that they may have never had before, and access and roads into DJing, whether it's through SoundCloud or through Virtual DJ, or later on through Pioneer or through Denon. I mean, I think that's one of the really strong takeaways from here, is that once everybody has the same level of access, then the sort of it's going to come down to like how passionate you are as whether it's crate digging or just being a music enthusiast or learning the craft, and I don't think people should be kind of scared of leveling the playing field, so to speak.
And I'd argue that people have access to all the world's music already. They're just not paying for it. And what a lot of you guys here are doing is now commercializing that, so the artists get paid, so the songwriters get paid, and that's what we should all be aiming for. And then the industry gets better and more healthy. And piracy has been around for a long time, and a lot of people are getting this from pirate places now. I reckon if you surveyed the room, that would be it. And so there's a whole collection of people up here who want to make a difference for the DJ, for the artist, for the songwriter, and I think that's great.
We've had that conversation before about piracy, where people are actually willing to pay, and they're paying the wrong companies. They're paying, where the flow of money doesn't go back to artists. So if we can continue to work collaboratively, but make it quite simple and lower the barrier to entry in a similar way that it has been lowered for music creation. That's almost completely been removed, and anybody can download a DAW for free, get samples, subscribe to Splice, access to amazing plugins. We're essentially trying to do the same, but with DJing and with label catalogs.
I agree that we need to do this, but at Beatport we also believe that a streaming subscription for DJs should be priced differently than a subscription for consumers, because this is, if professionals are DJing with this in front of an audience, I think they have to pay more. And why do they have to do this? Because the people who are making music, they also need to get paid. So this should not bite into their download revenues or make this go away. It should add to it.
But I guess, again, I've got to step into the devil's advocate's shoes. And Morgan, your point earlier was it's just a file format, what does it matter? Well, the value of a download is much greater than the value of a stream. So if I'm a record label and I'm staring down the barrel of a shocking change in the industry from a download model to a streaming model, I've got to start looking at big changes in my own business. So I guess my question to you, Heiko, from a Beatport perspective is how, if we all now take it as read that the future is streaming into the DJ booth, how are you going to work with labels to give them a soft landing from, say, 10,000 streams a year now to, 10,000 downloads a year now to none?
I mean, that's why we've been working on this with the labels, and that's why we needed to sign these new contracts and come up with a price point where the labels would agree with us on it. So for example, a subscription with this locker functionality that you can actually DJ with it in a high quality, that's going to cost round about €40 for 50 tracks that you can put in a locker and put out again. And then we expect that there will be a lot of tracks that people just will put in and out of the locker and stream with it, but then some they will want to keep and buy. And with this combination, we want to make sure that this is not biting into the downloads.
And Rick, you kind of made a small comment earlier that the future of the music industry is one where there's no value in the music, more or less, economic value, I think you're saying. So I guess I'm going to come back to Liz now, because let's just follow that path, that the future is a future of streaming where people don't own and buy music. But now, as a company like BMAT or others that are listening to the music on radio, TV, and in clubs, you can monetize that. So I guess everybody knows that when music is played in a club, when music is played on radio, when music is played on TV, there is performing right and mechanical right revenue that goes back to songwriters and to artists. Is the world set up already capable to take all of this data so that the money that might be lost from downloads could be made up from gigs?
I couldn't tell you anything about quantities or anything like this, but definitely this was the point I was trying to make before in terms of getting more and more data. You have companies like BMAT who are essentially tech providers to the performing rights organisations or any company in the industry that wants to receive that data, and we are ready to deliver it. And the PROs are saying, like I was mentioning before about the Kuvo data, this is really interesting and we want to pay out. And actually something that interesting that happened last week was having a conversation with Coda, which is the Authors Society in Denmark. And so I called them up and I said, I'm going to do a panel next week. Can I tell them about any progress you've made with the Kuvo data? And they said, actually, we're going to buy Kuvo data, all cleaned and all enriched with additional data fields from your database for the whole year, and we're going to distribute it for all of 2019. Amazing. This is brilliant, because this is now Coda with APRA distributing with Kuvo data, and then I can share that good news with all of the PROs, et cetera, et cetera. And they say to me, what we're trying to figure out now is we've got 8 clubs where we have the Kuvo device installed, and we're going to be paying out the license fees from those clubs, so it's pay per play, but we don't know whether to include other license fees from other clubs that we can say that's a fair representation of electronic music, because that would be far better to use the Kuvo data compared to a radio analogy, which is obviously has nothing to do with the music played in electronic music clubs. And then he says, but it really just depends on the members, because we need to know how much pressure we have from them, and it really is down to them whether they want us to change or not. And that's the thing. We've got to the point now where, in terms of getting data out of venues, we are seeing changes in terms of Kuvo data, in terms of streaming arriving to the DJ booth, in terms of even clubs and music festivals approaching BMAT Direct for installations, which is very new since just before Christmas, just gone. So what's missing? Or what could be missing? The membership. It's making sure people are members. The Association for Electronic Music does an amazing job of lobbying and communicating, but it's an organisation on the outside, and they represent members who will be PRO members, but there is, I think, so much more of the electronic music community that needs to become a member and literally push from the inside and become a part of that growing voice of the electronic music community, because and again, there are differences from one territory to the next and one PRO to the next, but there are a lot that are very innovative and are literally waiting to hear and respond to their members, who are their clients.
And when you say members, you mean songwriters, producers, vocalists, so
Record
people
labels.
that make music. Yeah. So I guess we've got this we're at the beginning of a really interesting change, because you could end up in a position in 10 years' time where people that make music earn more money, and labels that release money need to be working out their business model now with a view to seeing it change, because we're not saying it's going to die, but it's going to change.
Well, it's changing, but there's still a journey to kind of go on, right? And we're at the very early stages of that. But I think what is potentially interesting in terms of kind of revenue from streaming, specifically for dance electronic, is that currently most of that revenue is coming from the consumer, who's a lean-back listener, who's like listening to a playlist, and that content features on the playlist. And the opportunity that DJ integrations present, really through the streaming platforms, is an opportunity for dance and electronic labels to actually turn those passive listeners into really active users, people who become DJs, or people who become interested in looking for the content, searching it out, and then engaging in it, in searching in it. And because the dance electronic stuff is going to make up the largest market share of usage in these DJ integrations, there is the opportunity to actually start to grow market share on an overall level for this type of music. And I think that is what we should also be really focused on.
I think it's also important to point out that the venues and festivals have a real responsibility here, because I've been to a lot of different clubs, DJing or just visiting, and the Kuvo box is there, but it's just not switched on, it's not plugged in. The venues have no skin in this game. They have no reason, apart from obligations morally, to make sure the artists get paid from the PROs. So there has to be some kind of system where, first of all, there's no gamification options. There's no make sure all the tagging is correct, so everyone gets paid, because this is a new technology, and also to make sure that the venues actually are set up to report this and that they're obliged to do so accurately.
Yeah, because in Australia they had a terrible lot of stuff happen, so they put in some monitoring in, but they could only afford to put it in half a dozen clubs. And it went from people doing their own...
Careful, Frank's in the audience.
Oh well. Frank, oh good. Hello, mate. We've had this conversation before. And basically, I think it went from people writing down that they played all their own songs that night at the club, to then when the monitoring system came in, it was, oh, wow, it's totally different. So both sides have been changed. And then it was, okay, now we want to spread this out across everyone in Australia, which once again wasn't a fair representation. So for us, I think at Denon, we want to make this information available for free so people can be reported correctly, because that's what the industry needs. Then you get real reporting.
Yeah.
I think the real takeaway for labels is to have your metadata very organized.
Absolutely.
On time. It really help you out in the end.
So listen, we've got about 8 minutes left, and I'm really keen to hear what people in the audience have got to say about the different things that they've heard, or ask any questions so they can clarify or challenge anybody that's on stage. So please put your hands up if you have a question, and before asking it, say who you are and what you do. Please.
Hello, I'm a tech lead for Changing Faces. Me and my mates here visiting today. One of the big things I noticed everyone's talking about is essentially big data concepts. You know, the world's got all this data, and at the moment, one of the emerging trends is to open that up, have open APIs. You know, Google does this, for example. They let everyone get access to their data, so the rest of the tech platforms are healthier. Now, they still license it, still make money from it, but do you think that logic will apply in a DJ world? So, for example, is Kuvo's data going to get shared with someone else's data, and together can they make something stronger? What's your perceptions on that?
I mean, I can speak from the Dubset side. Back
Sure.
during NAMM in January this year, we launched our API, which is just simply open to plug into anyone's technology, really, so that there's transparency there on what's happening in metadata that we know we're getting from rights holders and publishers, so it's exact to that point. It's coming from the right source. And then that is at least available. So when we license content in a mix, that it can at least be passed through.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, the data that Kuvo generates that now we pass on to BMAT to help distribute was actually a byproduct of what Kuvo was meant to be originally. We were capturing all of this data, sharing it back to, you know, clubbers on the dance floor. I can see what's playing, kind of cool, but the real value was sharing it with performance rights organizations. And we had quite a strict policy internally that we would never monetize this data, because we wanted to give something back to the industry. So sure, I think we'd be pretty open to having some form of open API vision.
I mean, it's kind of interesting just then what I was saying to my mates. Kuvo boxes, we've never really seen those in clubs, but logically you'd think CDJs would do that anyway. They would send what's played on it to...
So that was the biggest challenge of Kuvo, was that, please, Mr. Club owner, can you install an internet connection in the DJ booth? This box gets unplugged. You're dependent on the DJ and his metadata to be accurate. As soon as you've got that internet connection with the file, no need for any of those variables. So the data source will be 100% reliable.
Yeah, just what you've touched on there, that this is the biggest implication of this whole concept for me, is the potential for the data. In terms of, imagine a situation in the future where there's a DJ social network and, you know, you're having dinner in London and your phone vibrates and you find out that Charlotte DeWitt's playing your record in Tokyo right now, This can happen very soon if these are implicated correctly. And then, you can end up connecting with people who are playing your music that maybe in Mexico you would never otherwise end up following them, message each other, do a collab, they book you over there. For agents, they'll find out that their artist is popular in a region they may not have known about. All of this is huge implications for the industry. That's what's most exciting for me. So getting this data shared and keeping it as open as possible is absolutely key.
And we're already seeing that with live bands, where we're selling radio data, TV data, venues data. And for example, I was in South by Southwest for the first time this year, talking to them about, would you like to know where your audience is in Europe and South America and Asia? And that's the thing, like as soon as you can connect your music with your audience, you can start really getting a lot more value out of it and making a lot of more smart decisions about where you'll go touring or where you'll start doing campaigns or where you'll make sure you target your next releases or distributions and things like this.
Yeah, for people, there's a question for me, but how much focus will there be on back-end analytics for labels to see this kind of information?
Yeah, that's important for us too. That's something that we're working on now at the moment, because that's something completely new for us as well.
Yeah, so same for us as well. We already have a level of analytics that are available to artists and labels on how their music's being consumed on a fan base. But what's going to be super interesting for labels is to actually see where their content's getting played and how often. And then because SoundCloud, what's at core of it is being a social media platform as well. What you're talking about is that notification that your record's getting played in a country by somebody that maybe you have no idea about, and then the ability to sort of start a chain of social sharing and commenting and engagement.
Yeah. We've got time for one more question, if anyone's got one. Yes, no, is there a hand go up? Yep.
Hi, I'm Bobby Burns. DJing for over 20 years. I'm familiar with Kuvo and everything, but from an artist perspective, especially from DJing, for me it was always like, even if I play my own tracks, 9 out of 10 times there wouldn't be released at the time I'll be playing the set. It was more like you want to keep a secret, you want to deliver like a great set, but sharing your playlist directly in front of a huge audience maybe like very friendly to all the labels and everything, but more for me as a DJ, it was always like, I want to keep it a secret, test out records and stuff like that, and I don't want to share my own music and mashup and everything on a worldwide base, because to me it was like more important.
Who wants to respond to that in less than 1 minute?
Yeah, so the first thing we did is put a feature inside Rekordbox where artists could hide the track. So it would just come through, as you say, called secret. So we were aware of that, but yeah, sure. Kuvo was just really in its infancy stages and it's still trying to grow and plug into all of these different technologies. So yeah, hopefully we've answered that question.
Sols, out of time. I've been getting the wind up so we can get some time back. Sorry, everybody. Listen, thank you very much to everyone on stage. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for asking questions. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.